AGI is accelerating, and as you all know from the news and maybe from your own use of these agents and systems, Anthropic is absolutely killing it, exceeding all expectations, growing by 80x, by 8,000%. Instead of 1,000%, what they expected, instead of 10x. And it's a crazy, crazy time to be alive. They just struck a huge deal with SpaceX about using Colossus 1 and getting all this compute. They investing hundreds of billions into Google to get actually TPU access while also doing deals with Amazon. They're extremely hungry for more. And OpenAI, despite being bogged down a little bit with a lawsuit against Elon, or Elon against them, is also firing on all cylinders, and don't count them out. So what caught my eye today in the Pioneer Academy? Go to pioneerlands.org, by the way. There you can find probably the best news aggregation in the industry. We have our big drop near AI sorting through all the news, but this caught my eye, so you can click on these things here. AGI, for example, robots, autonomy. In AGI, I go down here and I saw this. OpenAI and Anthropic both launched $10 billion plus joint ventures with asset managers for enterprise AI. So when we click on this, TechCrunch, for example, I go right into the news, look at this, and you're seeing here that huge things are happening. I want to cover that today to explain what I see here and why this is much more important than it seems on the surface. At face value, it's just another little joint venture between Anthropic and a bunch of private equity firms, and then another joint venture of OpenAI and a bunch of private equity firms. But it's actually much more than that. It is a sign of things to come for our economy, for our labor force, and for the age of AGI. And it's a sign of things to come as early as end of this year, as early as in 9 months or so. We will feel the impact of deals like that. These are not deals between Google and OpenAI or Microsoft and Anthropic. These are not deals of Walmart implementing something. No, these are deals that touch the very core of our entire economy, the very core of a system that employs millions and millions of Americans and people all over the world. So let me explain why this is different from just an enterprise deal, why this is an economically and structurally important deal or two deals, and what it actually means. So here's the news. On Monday, Anthropic announced a joint venture focusing on deploying enterprise AI services. So far, so good. Blackstone, Hellman and Friedman, and Goldman Sachs will be founding partners in the new venture, which is backed by a group of VCs, hedge funds, and private equity firms, including Apollo Global Management. You all know them probably. General Atlantic, GIC, Leonard Green, and Sequoia Capital, the big VC firm. So you have everything from big healthcare related, but also general private equity, to core Silicon Valley venture capital. The Wall Street Journal, which first reported news on the partnership, reported the new venture was valued at $1.5 billion, which includes $300 million commitment from each Anthropic, Blackstone, Hellman, and Friedman. The announcement comes just as Anthropic's chief rival is preparing to make a similar move. Mere hours after the Anthropic announcement, Bloomberg reported that OpenAI was raising funds for a new venture called the Development Company. Very ominous. When people call their companies something super generic, like X Corporation, then you have to be very, very wary of how ominous this sounds, because things like that sound like we are taking over the world. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do. OpenAI's venture would operate at a larger scale, raising $4 billion from 19 investors against a $10 billion valuation. Named investors include TPG, Brookfield Asset Management, Advent, and Bain Capital, the people who made Romney so rich, with no apparent overlap in investment between the OpenAI venture and Anthropic's competitors. So these are different sets of the same type of companies. Basically, they're covering a vast share of the private equity market with this deal, with these two deals. And here's the overall logic of the two ventures. They want to be raising money from alternative asset managers to create new channels for enterprise AI deals. The ventures will presumably get preferred sales access to their investors' portfolio companies, while the investors will capture more value from any resulting contracts. Okay, think about this. What does it mean? What does it mean? You have these new ventures, they get supplied with core AI and AGI. Let's call it what it is. Economic AGI, job replacement technology. Universal super employees, billions of super employees, because we're talking agent swarms now, by OpenAI, who actually acquired OpenClaw, and Anthropic, who created all these Anthropic and Claude agent systems now. So these two put into each of their ventures their technology, and now their problem is, think about this, their problem is they can solve all problems in the world. They can do most white collar jobs in the world. I told you that this will be happening, and now we have reached the point where we have reached full-blown economic AGI across a vast swath of jobs. And maybe I'm early, but I'm only early 4, 6, 8 weeks. So even for the job types I am not right yet, I will be right in 8 weeks or maybe 12 weeks, give it 12 weeks max. But for most jobs, I'm already right. You can replace the median employee in most mid-level jobs in white-collar work already with these agents, if you know how. Now think about it, what that means. In theory, you can already replace 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% of all white-collar jobs and administrative jobs. They are often not called white-collar jobs. Let's say all jobs where you're just sitting there on a screen and typing stuff and emailing people. All of these jobs, from healthcare, from government administration, to law firms, to a lot of healthcare jobs, they can be replaced by agents. That is the situation we are looking at right now. That is why these companies are valued in the trillions at this point. Because we know they're going after the $25 trillion labor market. And that market could expand dramatically, Jevons paradox and stuff like that. Once you lower the cost of employees by 90%, because they turn out to be agents, the demand for employees will skyrocket. Not for human employees, but for these agents. That is the situation that we already entered from a capability perspective. In other words, we can do this now. Not in the future, we can do it now. What stands between that capability and complete job devastation and destruction? Or, in other words, complete multi-trillion-dollar market caps for many companies participating in this. What stands between total job destruction and total market cap explosion? Same thing. And the current state of things? Not technology, not AI problems. They have been solved. It is a pure distribution and implementation problem at this point. It is only, the last problem left is, how do you get the capability into the actual companies? Now, you have 3 types of companies, as you know, if you studied management or if you ever read anything about business. You have large enterprise companies. You have Google, Walmart, Ford, McDonald's, Boeing, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. Then you have the mid-size businesses, and then you have the small businesses. Mom and pop shops, millions of them, right? The enterprise level is already taken care of because the sales people in Anthropic and OpenAI are taking care of them, and the enterprise boards have already recognized that they are hiring Accenture, they are hiring McKinsey, they are hiring BCG. So on that level, both sides are finding each other. It's going to take another year before they really figured it out. They're lame and slow, but it's on track of total destruction for the jobs. The mid-level, maybe the most important chunk in economic terms. The mid-level is where the real money and the real scale is. Because the mom and pop shops, the small businesses, they're like, whatever. It's a lot of businesses, a lot of people, but it's not that important and not a lot of money. Very hard to implement. The enterprise level, sure, these are the big fish, but in the totality of the big fish don't represent the majority of the economy. The majority of the economy are the middle layer, okay? And who is the big distribution trick? Who is the big path for mass distribution into mid-size enterprise? Of course, you know the answer. It is private equity. Look at private equity ownership, for example, in healthcare, an enormous giant sector that can be massively now disrupted with AI. Imagine everyone in health insurance, everyone in hospitals, what a doctor does all day long. 50% of a doctor works is complete white collar typing stupid things into a computer. a nurse, same thing. But all the hospital administrators, all the management staff, all the insurance companies, massive. Hey, on this channel, we do something very important. We deeply analyze, understand, and predict capital, AGI, and politics. Not just to beat the markets and make a lot of money, even though that's important, but also to build a new society and make the future good for all of us, the pioneers. If you want to help me on this journey, you can do that by doing a very simple thing. Like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. Then think about law firms. Think about mid-sized law firms. Think about accounting firms. Think about all these limitless numbers of industries. Mid-sized manufacturing. There is so much stuff going on, and private equity was on a run recently over the last 20 years, 30 years. They just nailed it. Some people say they did bad things. Doesn't matter. We're not here to judge. They own a lot of stuff at this point. They have become the hubs of the mid-sized companies because they own a lot of them. Or they could buy whatever is remaining. So by doing these deals, you have perfect alignment between what OpenAI and Anthropic want. They want deployment of AI, and they want to have a lot of users, and they want to capture all the enterprise value they generate with that. And they are partners in crime. Hopefully not crime, but you know what I mean, which are the private equity firms who have a huge interest in deploying AI because it means they can fire everyone now. And if you know anything about private equity, they love to fire people. They love to restructure and break up companies and destroy them in the process, sometimes generate a little bit of value. That is one thing, restructuring, carving up a company, saying that these things could be more valuable separately, for example. Sometimes they merge companies, sometimes there are synergies, doesn't matter. But one of the key things private equity does is firing people, seeing opportunities to restructure a business, to introduce new efficiencies, especially in these mid-level companies. They often lag behind the latest and greatest in management technologies and software technologies. And so the private equity firm's business is to take over a business and make it more efficient. Drive up margins. How do you drive up margins? By firing people and making things more efficient. It is the absolute core business of Bain Capital, Blackstone, and so on and so forth. Brookfield, all these people. So you have a perfect match of interests here. You have on the one side the private equity guys who own hundreds of thousands of companies collectively. And you have OpenAI and Anthropic who can now go in with the help of these private equity guys and knock everyone out. So what does that all mean? We can read a little bit more here. The new capital will also allow more engineering resources to be devoted to each individual, embracing the forward deployed engineer model popularized by Palantir. Sure. So there's a little sugar coating the whole thing. Forward deployed engineer. That just means consultants, right? They go in, they use AI, and they knock everyone out. As Anthropic put in its announcements, as engagement might begin with the company's engineering team sitting down with the clinicians and IT staff to build tools that fit into the workflow that several use, engagements like this will run across mid-sized companies across industries, each shaped by the people closest to the work. Exactly. So the new ventures come as both AI labs fundraise at a blistering pace while circling possible IPOs. OpenAI announced 122 billion in new funding at the end of March against a valuation of 852 billion. TechCrunch reported last week that Anthropic is in the final stages of their own funding round, seeking 50 billion of new funding against a $900 billion valuation. That is a situation. They have a lot of money. How do you spend the money? You do deals with SpaceX for more compute, and Google and Microsoft and Amazon. But at the same time, on the demand side, on the market grabbing side, it's a race for market share now between these two. You need more access. You need to scale down from core big S&P 500, Fortune 500 enterprise into the vast, vast space of mid-sized companies. To go into these companies, deploy forward deployed engineers that knock out all these annoying white-collar workers from their perspective and create all that value that private equity likes so much. What does it all mean for us and for the economy and for the macro perspective? I told you guys that I believe the biggest gaslighting operation in history, literally, is that these people tell the rest of the world AI is going to create more jobs than it destroys. That is literally the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I think most of them know it. But they have no choice because they need the money. If you're a billionaire, you need more billions. You can't escape. So you need to squeeze out all these jobs and take it over. So that is just how it is. And if I put it on a timeline, our specialty here is don't judge the humans. They do whatever they want to do. Predict the humans and predict their systems. When this is being done, or while it's being done right now, with the exponential capability of these systems and the fact that we have already reached mostly across the board AGI, economic AGI, meaning AGI that can replace people en masse. I think we are right there now that we can replace over 50% of white collar jobs probably as of today, and in 8 or 12 weeks it will be 80%. And then it's purely deployment. So which means in my rough estimation, I don't have a high resolution model yet on that question of total job replacement, but I think we have reached the absolute inflection point. The fact that you have industries and leading private equity firms like that jumping in here with Anthropic and OpenAI right now means that down the line, in less than 12 months, we will see a total wave of job destruction. So I actually predicted that a while ago, 18 months ago or something at this point, or like 16 months ago, that 2027 will be the year where the storm arrives and panic will break out in the economy because we will hit total unemployment. Of course, not in the statistics. American unemployment, by the way, is measured in a way that it cannot go up. Even if everyone loses their job, unemployment would be at 4%. So don't look at that number. That is a stupid number because if everyone loses their job, but all Americans pick up their phone, call their neighbor and ask them if they can mow the lawn, there will be no unemployed people. Because what these surveys check is, did you work for anyone and got paid for it? And since Americans are entrepreneurial, if you fire them all, everyone will ask someone for money and do something. So basically you cannot be unemployed in America. It's impossible. You can have no job and nothing to eat, but you cannot be unemployed, which is a little stupid in my opinion, that the statistics work like that. So don't look at the unemployment number, just look around you and talk to people and ask them if they have jobs. Of course, right now, it might not look that bad, even though for a lot of people it does. But my prediction is 2027 at some point, maybe very early, maybe as early as January, maybe as late as July, August next year. It will be a tsunami of job destruction. So I'm saying it right now. I said it for 16 months. If I'm wrong, we can talk about it. Maybe I was wrong. I don't think so. And I think the same thing is awaiting Europe. In Europe, it will be a little more extreme because the flexibility is lower. But this whole job destruction thing is coming. And that will have repercussions for a lot of things. And it will not lead to a recession. That's my other prediction. Because the economy has already been decoupling. And it will be decoupling even more. And when you really look into economics and the theory of economics, it is completely conceivable in the age of AGI that you have massive economic growth. Everyone who has a company, who has shares in these companies, is happy forever and makes infinite money while 90% of the population starves to death. No problem in the age of AGI. Because if you just generate massive amounts of value between SpaceX and OpenAI, who needs the humans? So you need to understand economics and understand where it actually breaks the old patterns to understand the new economy is not reliant on people having money. So that might be very bad news for the people, by the way. These are just some of the predictions we're doing here at Pioneer Lands, but now you know my perspective. Feel free to ask questions. Go to pioneerlands.org. That's the best way to ask questions. You can ask it in the comments, but the advantage of asking them here, you can just sign up, doesn't cost anything, but I want you in there, so we have these discussions. The advantage of asking questions here or in the forum, you can click on forum and you get to our amazing little community and can discuss here. But if you ask these questions, I can actually respond to them on YouTube if they are good questions. So please join the discussion here. I think there are major things happening. I need everyone who's smart on board, and I hope that was interesting, and see you very soon.